will open this meeting of the Sheffield Selectboard and thank CPSB for the great job they always do for us. Thank you. First item on the agenda is meetings, and I'm off to a good start already. And seeing how we have no minutes, we will skip to item 2. Okay, we have appointment announcements for the Cultural Council and Board of Registers.
So they're not announcements, they're
appointments, excuse me.
So I'll make a motion that we appoint Sarah Kissel to the Sheffield Cultural Council and David Sobel to the Sheffield Cultural Council.
There's more.
And Mark St. Germain.
Oh, and Mark St. Germain also to the Cultural Council. And as long as I'm at it,
yes,
right.
Ruby Littman to the Democratic Party, representative on the Board of Registrars.
I can second that. The terms for the Cultural Council are 3 years, Rhonda?
Yeah.
And what is the term on the Board of Registers?
3 years.
3 years, too.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, approval of curb cut for Giberson Road.
I would make a motion that we approve the curb cut as submitted for Storm Field on 1204 Salisbury Road.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Yes. Are you approving the request for the waiver of the paved apron? Did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
Up here. Yep.
I just want to make sure that's in your motion.
Since it's a dirt road, there's really no reason.
I agree, but I want to make sure that it's in your motion.
Sometimes we have to go with the common sense approach. Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion?
No.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You're welcome. Have a good night.
Good night.
Okay. Moving on, electrical vehicle charger update.
So let me just give you a brief update on this. We've gotten some information back from the initial vendor on the language they included. And I get the impression from what he responded, and Rhonda's had a chance to, I believe, see that email, that may be standard language on any contract that we get from any National Grid approved vendor. So there's a couple of things going on. One, I've contacted National Grid and am looking for other vendors. He is on their approved list. Second of all, I'm asking that vendor for references here in Massachusetts so I can call and see what kind of job he did or their firm did. And 3, if that's going to be standard language, I'd like to see if the board would approve having that reviewed by council.
It sounds good to me.
I agree.
Very
That's
good.
it. That's it.
Okay. Discussion, action regarding letter of support for paint stewardship bills.
So we talked about this at our last, I don't know whether it was working session or meeting, but I did kind of a simple, straightforward letter. And also we have in the audience with us the person who was kind enough to send us all of the information on this and move us to write this letter. So if you have any questions, he's available for us to answer them.
The paint stewardship, about recycling, basically, and how it would change the recycling of latex and oil-based paints.
I'd be happy to describe it.
That would be lovely.
Great, I'd appreciate that, sir. If you'd like to come up to the podium and state your name, address.
Good evening, my name is Tom Rowan. I live at 54 Central Ave in Boston, Massachusetts. The paint stewardship program is viable, working for over a decade in 4 of our 6 surrounding states, and those are Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maine, and Vermont. It's been working flawlessly, and recently, in 2019, it passed in New York. And in this program, people are allowed to return their unwanted oil-based or latex paint to any hardware store that's a participant at no charge. They just simply bring it in, put it on the counter, as long as it's liquid and in the original can with the original label, because they're going to reblend it, and they're all set. The paint is then accumulated in bins, and then a national agency that's responsible for recycling picks up the bins, hauls it to a reprocessing plant where the spec of the paint is brought back up to as new. And it is then sold for anywhere from 30 to 50% of the original cost of the paint.
That's excellent. Now, if I read correctly, there is a small charge per can when
Correct.
you purchase it.
At the time of purchase, you basically pay your disposal fee right up front. And it's 75 cents a gallon or $1.75. These are rough numbers, could give or take. $1.75 for 5 gallons. So it's not $3.75 as you might expect if you did the simple math. It's $1.75 because, you know, if you buy 5 gallons, you're probably going to leave, you know, only a small amount at the bottom. And they're not trying to make money, they're trying to break even. And as a hallmark of how well that's worked in the state of Connecticut, the price per gallon of 75 cents and 5 gallons for $1.75 has lasted for over 10 years. No change.
Nice.
Break
Kind
even.
of like a bottle deposit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
No, I love the idea.
It seems to be a no-brainer. It seems to also just be a good way to do it all the way around.
The issue in the past has been, and because I was kind of curious, why, if it's such a no-brainer, why hasn't it passed? And I was amazed to learn that there are somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 bills brought before the legislature in any single session, and they only passed 4%. And as one senator said to me, how happy would the people in the state of Massachusetts be if we passed 7,000 new laws each session? Good point. But at any rate, they pass about 4%, and they triage the list to which ones have saved the most money, which ones had the greatest social outcry, and lo and behold, that gives them about the 4% that they end up passing. Paint Care only saves about 2 to 3 million, which is big money for all of us, but small change to the state. And there hasn't been the hue and cry from people because it largely is unknown. I've spent the year trying to advocate for this law, and I've gathered over 3,000 signatures, asking different legislators to become co-sponsors. And in that group, if I've seen 1% of people that knew the law was present, the scoop was that's a lot. But things have changed. In the course of this year, enough people have become aware of the law that now 60% of the paint that's returned to the Enfield Sherwin-Williams comes from Massachusetts residents. And that was actually measured. I went to those folks. We did a study for a period of a week to kind of get that hard number. But it's also true just across the border in New York, in Vermont, in Maine and Rhode Island. In fact, there's so much paint returned to Vermont from New Hampshire and from Massachusetts, they had to up their fee on their cans of paint from 75 or 99 cents to $1.35 as of this May 1st. So we're taking care of our dirty laundry, if you will, by passing the law.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like you deserve a big thank you for doing the legwork and bringing this to the forefront, because it does look like it's a very simple no-brainer that should have been passed, but probably just doesn't get as much traction without somebody like you bringing it up and putting a light on it. So I thank you.
Well, and I thank you folks for your support. The one elaboration I would like to make is that the place that it's gotten stuck in the past is at the Ways and Means Committee. Generally, it's the House. In the last session, the Senate passed it. So what I'm asking towns to do is pass a resolution specifically worded to ask that the committees to please move the legislation along to the floor for a vote. I have draft legislation. If it's not before you, I have copies that I can share with you. That makes it a no-brainer. Just put in the town's name, some 3 signatures, and poof, bang, you're done.
Excellent.
So this goes through the Ways and Means Committee?
Because of the 75-cent fee, it has to go through the Ways and Means Committee.
So that, if I remember correctly, that's a joint committee?
There is a Senate and a House committee, yes.
Do they meet jointly, or are there 2 committees?
There are 2 committees.
Okay, so I would make a motion that we authorize our town administrator to add a line to that effect, and that we also CC the chairs of both the Senate and the House Ways and Means Committees.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. May I share some of the language at the very tail end of this document right here in this paragraph may help you with that one sentence.
We have.
Does that go down to Rhonda?
I have it.
Okay?
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you again.
Thanks.
Thank you. Number 6 is yours, Rhonda?
Yes. I just want to remind everyone of the new hours for Town Hall are 9 to 4, Monday through Thursday. That means we're now open on Wednesday and closed to the public on Fridays.
Thank you.
Okay, discussion, possible action regarding Wi-Fi expansion.
You skipped number 7.
Did I do that again? Yes, I did.
I don't think you
I'm in a
like that
rush
number.
to get through that.
I guess you are.
Okay, appointment of police officers. So we have 2 officers that have finished their probationary term and now need to be instated as full-time officers. So, well, 1 full-time, 1 part-time.
I make a motion that we appoint Michael Ovid as a full-time officer for a term to expire on June 30th, 2026, and Nathan Charette as a part-time officer for a term to expire on June 30th, 2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, now we can move on to the discussion, possible action regarding Wi-Fi expansion.
Okay, so there's a grant that's being administered through, or as a result of this, MBI and the federal's giving broadband money to the state of Massachusetts and other states. This grant is being administered by Berkshire Draconic Foundation. It's a $5,000 grant. I have to apply for it. And basically, if we were accepted in the first of 2 steps, we would be able to put Wi-Fi at the town park in the pavilion. So I'm willing to do that. I sat in on a webinar on this, and it looks pretty straightforward, but again, it does take an application. It does not look like it takes any town money unless somehow it costs more than $5,000 to put Wi-Fi in the pavilion. I think I would look to have that be strong enough to cover the park, but this is not my area of expertise, so I'm not sure. But I wanted to just see where the board is. I think every other public building has Wi-Fi. So this is also available for nonprofits, you know, like for Dewey Hall and nonprofit buildings, but our focus is on town facilities.
Yeah, I would encourage you to go ahead and apply for that grant. I think it would be a useful service, especially to parents watching Little League games.
Is there any future costs to it?
Well, I'm sure
Maintenance or program
everything,
costs?
I mean, we have to maintain here in town and all the buildings, so I'm sure there is a future cost. I think probably our books would be better, you know, our accountant would be better, or on getting those numbers. I mean, I think Wi-Fi is Wi-Fi, but I could ask about that.
So our bill, I believe, like for the town hall, do you remember? Is it like $112 a month?
More than that, but
More than that for this
Is what,
bill?
please?
yeah.
It's a little over 100
A year, a month?
a month.
Maybe like 140.
140.
Now, would
So-
that be added to our plan, or would this be a whole additional subscription?
It would be an additional subscription, because each building has its own.
And is that under John Shannon? Or who's that under?
The cable.
Oh, it's under charter. Okay. So I would, of course, have to work, now I know with whom, to probably Jill to get those numbers. because I'm going to have to submit an estimate of what this is going to cost. But again, I didn't want to do anything if there wasn't board support.
Yeah, I think that, I just think that the town park is being used more and more and more by more people, and I think it would be a useful service. For, if it's $1,200 a year, I don't think it's a huge commitment on our part, but if it's more than that, we might want to reconsider.
Pat, would you like to go to the podium?
Pat Levine, 261 East Main Street. I just wonder, since Wi-Fi is something you can turn on and turn off, whether or not, if it's important to someone renting that pavilion, it gets factored into the fee that might be applied, rather than just have it on 24/7.
Well, we don't charge to use the pavilion.
But
There's
perhaps
no
this
fee.
would be a reason to think
Yeah.
about doing it differently if that was important to an agency that was using it.
I think part of the thing, Pat, that this effort is trying to do is make hotspots
Yeah.
and make things where people, it's kind of like EVs. You can kind of go a certain distance and know that there's going to be something there that you need. I think some of this stuff also, personally, I don't know whether it's more of a pain to shut it off or try to shut it off, and then you got to make sure it turns back on. But I think the idea is try to also have hotspots where people can go, you know, at all different times of the day. But let me just kind of do a little more work, and Jill will be in to get the charter representative contact. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And do you, if everything looks kosher, can I just run this by Rhonda and we can submit it, or you want the board to see it again?
No, I think if Rhonda's okay with it, I'll be okay with it. If she says it's too expensive, then we'll stop.
Yes, absolutely. Or that
So
it's
do you want that in a motion form and a vote, or
Got it.
are we good?
You're good, you didn't take a vote, and you need a motion and a vote to
Okay,
apply for the grant.
so I'll make a motion that we go ahead and apply for this Wi-Fi expansion grant through Berkshire Taconic.
And I'll second that. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, approval of buy recycled policy for 2024.
If you want, it's up to you. This is just our annual update for our buy recycled that goes out to all employees. This is one of the things that is requested when we apply for some of the funds that we receive from DEP.
So I'll make a motion, we approve the letter as presented and that we adopt the recycling products purchasing policy, which is exactly the same as it's been for the last couple of years.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, discussion, possible action regarding Community Preservation Act.
All right, so you probably fainted when you saw this in your packet, okay? But what I wanted to just do is, some time ago, maybe it was 6 months ago, I got the okay from the board to kind of look into this. So what I wanted to do was give you a kind of a overview of this, and so with your permission, I'll just go through this very quickly. There's a number of parts that I need to spend more time on, and I'll point those out. But first of all, just a very quick overview. This was adopted in 2000. There's 196 municipalities that have adopted the CPA. It's basically for funding for 4 things: open space protection, historic preservation, affordable housing, and outdoor recreation. Now, we'll see a little bit further that there's basically 2 ways that you adopt a CPA. In all cases, it requires a ballot approval, which you can either do it by petition, or you can do it by passing the right to put it on the ballot at a town meeting, such as May. In both cases, at town meeting and at the ballot, it's a simple majority. Now, if you turn to the next page, you'll see who has done this, and as usual, everybody out west pays for things, and the east takes the money. There are a number of communities in Berkshire County who have adopted this, And it's kind of who you would expect, with the exception of Beckett. So there's William Towns, Pittsfield, Lennox, West Stockbridge, Lee, Beckett, and Great Barrington. Moving forward, we'll look at the CPA Trust Fund. There's basically two elements that make up this trust fund. One is the local contribution, and the second one is this trust fund, which every time there is a recording of the Registry of Deeds and real estate recording, as well as a regular fee on a real estate transaction, we're all paying $50 and $25. That's been being paid since 2000. So everybody in Sheffield who buys a house is paying that, and it goes into this trust fund. Since then, in 2012, they have allocated state funding every year, and I believe they did it in the supplemental budget that just passed, where they've added extra money into the CPA fund. Local contributions are matched at a certain level with money from the CPA fund. So that's just kind of brief. From the local raised revenue point of view, there can be a 1% to a 3%, which I do not recommend, of a levy against real property. But it's really important to understand that this surcharge does not apply to the tax bill, to the property bill, the assessed value. It applies to the tax bill. So if it was a $1,000 tax bill, it would be, if it was 1%, you can do the math. If it was 2%, you can do the math, 3%. I'm thinking that if we go forward with this, I'm looking at a 1 to 1.5%, not higher. The other thing that I find really interesting about this is that you can take monies that you think you are going to be receiving, such as from the room tax, and such as the meals tax. You could also probably take it from marijuana income. I need to do a little more work on this. And you can take some of that and put it into this pot. You have to do a minimum of 1%, but you could take another 1 or 2% from those funds that are already coming in and say, we're going to go for that total amount. The state will reimburse you on that total amount. So again, there's more to go here. I want to show you on the next page how much has been paid in, okay? You can kind of look at the number of years, and you can see that the final trust distribution is done in percentages. And as you can see, as more people, more communities have adopted this, the percentage naturally has gone down. But at the lowest of years, the percentage has been 17.2%, and I guess the other one was 19.01%. This last couple of years, it's run from 43.84%, 38.51%, 21.02%. That's a really good return on money, as far as I'm concerned. The next couple of pages are just for your review. It talks about how the money gets distributed. It's a rounding situation. Those who adopt the 3% get the most money, but again, I do not recommend that for Sheffield. The next couple of pages, we talked about how you do this at a town meeting, and if it gets the approval at town meeting, it goes on the ballot. That would be this year, a presidential year, so where I think turnout is usually higher than just a regular meeting, regular election. So if this proceeds, then you have a community preservation committee, which you can see that there are some members that are required by law, Conservation Commission, Planning Board, Historical Commission. We do not have a housing authority. We do not have a board of park commissioners. So in the warrant article and the ballot article, you can elect to add additional members, because that would only be 3, and that's too small of a committee. You can elect or allow the select board to appoint up to 4 additional at-large. And those people themselves can be elected or they could be appointed positions. All right, I'm going through this a little bit quickly, but the CPR, the Community Preservation Responsibilities, you've probably read about this in Great Barrington. You develop this community preservation plan. The money goes into this specific account. It can only be used for certain things we discussed earlier. You can move money forward. You don't have to spend it every year you get it. You have to put a certain percentage, 10%, into certain pots, which we talked about. But you can save your money. We just spent $250,000 on the police station roof. That would be a perfect community preservation plan. We are going to spend money on this building. We're going to have to be spending money, I'm sure, at some point on the library. Those are all just municipal projects that could qualify under this. The Community Preservation Committee develops a plan. It takes input and it comes up with what it feels are the projects that it wants to review. If you've, again, followed Great Barrington, they have to come up with the amount of money they're going to request. So this isn't just give me the money and I'll tell you later what it costs. You have to know what the money is going to be used for, and it has to be approved at town meeting. So once again, the voters have the final say. And then you have to keep records. And because this is not the simplest of stuff, a certain amount of money, up to 5% of the community preservation funds, can be used to administratively support that group. Now, when we get into the financials, and I have more work to do on this, there's a page that there's a community preservation group that took our 2023 fiscal year tax rate. And in February, they get all of these after they're approved, and they can run them. And so you begin to see some of the numbers play out. However, there are exemptions that are really important to be aware of. One, you can do an exemption for the first $100,000 of value on each taxable residential piece of property. Okay. You can also, and I have not had the time to talk with Tammy as to whether we have any of this, you can do $100,000 of the value of each taxable parcel of Class 3 commercial property, Class 4. I know we've got commercial property, I'm sure we do, and industrial property. Then you can also add, which to be honest, it doesn't appear most towns have, you can also make an exemption for property owned and occupied by a person who would qualify for low-income housing or low to moderate income senior housing. And in here, I have given you the numbers that person would have to qualify. Okay, they have to go in yearly, but if they do that and basically show that they qualify, they're exempt. You can also exempt low to moderate income, and again, that's non-senior, but that's the second chart that you have here. So you can have up to 4 exemptions. I do not know how the senior work-off program works in, and I don't know what other exemptions we might have that need to be taken into account. And again, that's spelled out in detail. So I also just added for you some of the information about Great Barrington and the $2.214 million the money that they have received, $2.2 million against their $4.95 that they have collected. Again, they have a 3% charge, which I would not recommend. And we also, I included Williamstown, and also the money that they have collected. They also have a 2%, so you begin to see the impact. They've collected $4.38 million since 2003, and they've received $1.8 million from the state. I also included Beckett. I can pull off anybody's projects that you want. They're at 1.5. They have a population of 1,093. And you can see the projects. I've also included the text of the legislation, and what I did not find, which I thought was so fascinating, let me just go back, is I included, I thought, a chart that showed, oh yes, here it is. You know, when we adopted the meals tax and the room tax, it was almost unanimous in its adoption. I remember it was, one of them was in the senior center, was the meal tax, and the room tax was in the general meeting. There was almost no opposition. Since then, we adopted it in 19. We have collected, both on the room tax, $383,000. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? And on the meal tax, we've collected over $75,000. Who would have thought? So we have collected between the two of those $485,000. And I include this chart because I'm really trying to show the power of a simple, hopefully non-regressive surcharge on property taxes and the amount of leverage that this town can receive from it. We have been collecting money and sending it to the eastern part of the state because they're always the ones that adopt first. And this was brought up at least 10 years ago, but I really would like the board to think about this. I owe you more financials. I'm going to be doing more work, but I really think we owe it to let the voters decide. Previously, the board wouldn't even take it to the warrant. I think we owe it to the voters to let them decide. And of course, this is a tax where we can exclude those who are most vulnerable and make sure that those who can afford to pay a simple surcharge would do so to benefit all of us. So when you have a chance to look this over, I'll be looking forward to your questions. I'm going to be working with the gentlemen at this organization to get more tax information, more understanding of who can be excluded, working the same with Tammy to see what have we got that I need to be aware of so I can come back to you with a better financial understanding. Is there anything I might be able to take a note on right now?
No, it's a lot.
Yes, it is.
The first thing that pops into my mind is it's another committee to try to find warm bodies to serve on, which is always a challenge.
Well, I think we have the one from the planning board. Okay.
Yeah, she'll abandon the planning board and moved here, so we'll still be looking for a warm body.
To be honest, Nadine, I think,
Just kidding
I
you.
think we have enough nonprofits as well as, I mean, my recommendation would be that there's a minimum of one person from the select board and one person from the finance committee that would be appointed. I have not found from talking with people that there has been any shortage of people for this committee. Anytime there's a committee that gets to give out money for more projects that are coming into the queue than you have money for. It's like cultural council. We can't keep people off that.
No, I totally, listen, I certainly see there certainly are benefits, for sure. I just don't know if the benefits outweigh the things that worry me, that's all.
Well, you know, I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, okay, when we were looking at the high school merger, the tax on that was going to be $50 per household. We can exclude households, and the tax will be left except on those who can afford to pay it.
Yeah, I love the idea that we certainly can protect, you know, those that are most vulnerable. I think that's definitely a feature that's, you know, interesting, and I certainly think that, you know, we do have some municipal historic buildings that cost us a small fortune to maintain and take care of, you know, and having some state monies to kick in on that is definitely a plus, you know.
We've talked about our parks.
Yeah.
You know,
no doubt about it.
We've talked about open spaces. We've you know, I'm going to use Dewey Hall, but they're here, you know, let them make their presentation to the community. All of that is.
Yeah, I appreciate the work you've done, and I'll look forward to more
I can't
information.
ask for more. How about you, Bob?
unfortunately.
I left you breathless.
I'm just trying to be politically correct. I am not a fan of taxation. I was probably with a few percent on the meal tax and the room tax that was opposed to it. Basically, this is another tax that looks complicated to me. If we've got to get into a lot of exemptions, then who has to oversee it and do the work?
The assessors.
Right.
But-
And our assessor is stretched thin.
She just got a new person.
Yes, but there's a long way to go with a new person.
Bob? I'm with you, buddy, but
Well, anyway.
let her do her work.
Yes, I have no problem with you doing the work, but at this point, no, I would not be in favor of going forward with this. But that's not saying I couldn't change my mind, but at this point, I just see a lot of complication, another tax. Not everybody is going to be happy about being taxed for open space and historical preservation and housing. It just, not everybody in town feels that that would be their choices to spend their money
I'm going to go do my
on.
work. I think we have no money for affordable housing. And how long have we beat this drum? And either we step up to it or we just admit that we're going to do nothing. I love the return on money. There is no return on any taxpayer's money. But let me do my work. I hear that I need to find someone from another assessor's office who will be willing to talk about the load that's on the assessor's office. And I need to find someone maybe from a community preservation committee who is on that, who would come in and talk about how their committee has worked.
You know, the point I have here, Bob, and I don't disagree with you, I don't like extra taxes either, and I voted against both the meal tax and the room tax. Just so you all know where I stand on these things. But I do think it's important for the voters to have a viewpoint on this. And since this isn't a decision made at this level, other than to get it to the voters, I think the voters have done a great job of coming out and telling us exactly what they think. And what harm can there be to letting them have their viewpoint on this? If they say no, they say no.
They say no, we go no further.
But I would really want more information before we decide to put it before the voters, because right now I wouldn't want to try to explain what you tried to explain.
I just wanted to get the horse out of the barn, so to speak, and get it publicly in the view. And I have a lot more work to do, and anything that, you think, well, do this, do that, let Rhonda know.
I will. I haven't had a chance to go through the entire packet, but I will.
I know, you just got it, we're in the holidays. I really would like to see if we could move this forward, and to be honest, part of the issue, from what I understand, where it failed, like in Egremont, is that the voters did not understand completely. This isn't as complicated as some things, but it's not necessarily easy.
Right.
So the message has to be very clear, and I need to work on that, and any help that you can give me, I appreciate. But thank you very much for the time tonight.
Okay, board member items.
Well, I would like to congratulate Michael Ulrich, Mount Everett Senior, who also happens to be my grandson, for scoring his 1,000th point a week and a half ago. I was running late tonight because I was at the high school when they were awarding him his painted game ball. It was done on the road, and it's a huge accomplishment for any young person. And I don't even think we have, 10 names on the roster of kids from Mount Everett who have hit 1,000. So that's what I have for you tonight.
Excellent. And congratulations to him. Nice to hear.
I saw that in the paper and was wondering if you were at the game.
Oh, yes.
I knew you said
He
you
only
were
had
going
9 points to go, and we were there in full force. There was more family there than there was players. But
That's an incredible accomplishment. Well, even though it is the 2nd of January, I'll wish everybody happy New Year's again. I do want to tell the board the absolute joy and delight that Sally Cook and her family got from the proclamation, which they are framing for the grandchildren.
Great.
And the flowers and the card that Nan Wells did. It was a really lovely situation. I also want to let people know that we were talking the other day about funding the Tri-Town Connector to expand service. I've asked that this be put up on the website, but this is the new schedule, okay? And I'm hoping that people will get to it. I don't think we can get it on the air, but okay. So that. Also, I thank Jill for putting up the new digital equity survey. It's under the news. Please try to take that. We're just continuing to try to ramp up to make sure that we get the money we need to have full service here in Sheffield, and maybe get some training and loaner programs on some of the laptops, etc. Also, I was talking to Phyllis today, and she just wanted me to let everyone know that nomination papers are now available at the town clerk's office for the following elected positions: 1 for Select Board, 2 for Planning Board, 1 for a library trustee, all of those are 3 years positions, and 1 for town moderator, which is a 1-year position. Papers can be taken out again now. They need to be taken out by Friday, March 22nd. Yes, 3/22, and they have to be returned with your signatures by Monday, March 25th, if they're going to be on the May town ballot. So anyone who's thinking about running, now is the time to get started. That's it.
Excellent.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. I have nothing, so Rhonda, town administrator item?
Nothing tonight.
Nothing tonight, so we'll have to move on to public comments. Any of the public? Kathy?
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Kathy Orlando, I'm chair of the Housing Commission, and I think it's great that you're bringing up the Community Preservation Act, because one of the things that the Housing Production Plan that was completed last year, thank you Nadine for spearheading that, was really to be able to consider that as one of the great tools to be able to help us. I mean, as anybody who lives here knows, it is very difficult for those who grow up here to be able to stay. And a lot of other communities have been able to make use of these community preservation funds to be able to do that. And there is a community preservation coalition that I'm assuming you're working with, Renee, who can really help to be able to craft the information for people, and answer questions. A number of years ago, they came out and they had been able to say, okay, so this is like the equivalent of, a cup of coffee, and so that it puts it into really easy terms for people to be able to understand. So
I'm in touch with them.
Yeah, and so they're great. And so the Housing Commission next was already starting to work on that as well. So we'll work with you on that. And I think it's a great opportunity to be able to, as Renee was saying, get some additional funds to match what we need for things, like our historic municipal buildings and the housing, which just, the funding for housing is only going to get more and more and more. And to be able to have an ongoing fund would just be tremendous to address that really crucial need.
Thank you. Sorry.
Sari Hoy, 60 Main Street. I had a question about the percentages of the CPA, 1, 2, 3, and the match. Is there a percentage that you don't get a match, or does every percentage rate get some form of match?
My understanding is that you have to be somewhere between 1 and 3. You can take a 0.5% along the way. They used to allow 0.5%, but no more. So it's 1, 1.5,
Right.
2, 2.5, 3. There is a rounding. There's rounds, how they distribute it. Round 1, round 2, round 3. Those who have the 3% get the most money.
Right.
Okay, but
Well, that's good. It's just that if we were going to do it, I would obviously want to get the match as well. I just didn't know if there was a way.
If you, this is very complicated to me, but for instance, if it were to be approved in November, okay, that is fiscal year 25. It wouldn't start until the next fiscal year. and then it has to get funded. So it's, whenever you get into this long period of time, but you don't start, you never finish.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
but everybody who's in it at 1% and above gets
Match,
funded.
which is
I think it's better to say gets a certain percent of funding,
Right.
because it's been all over the board.
Right.
But the main thing I think that's fascinating is that originally this was funded by the real estate taxes, those two little taxes.
Right.
But the state, which has given a ton of money away on this, has decided it's important enough that they have every year put money into the fund.
Right.
Doesn't mean they will every year.
Right.
But
They have done
every
it for a
year
long
they
time.
have added money to the fund.
I think the beauty of it, to me, one of them is that it's money that stays in our town. It's money that comes from our town and stays in our town.
Well, I don't know if it's going to come from our town. It's coming from the state, whether we put in potentially as much as we would get back. We've been contributing since 2000, but the main thing is, I like the idea that it is controlled by local citizens. It has to be approved at town meeting. So if people don't like it, they'll say no. And you can bankroll money. If you only get $40,000 a year, you can bankroll it. And as we've seen from the meals tax and the housing tax, it does add up. I mean, money
And
builds
what
up.
I've seen in Great Barrington and the way they've used it to leverage more money from the state and grants that are available in order to help them do a lot of the affordable housing and other projects that they're.
Yeah, I mean, you can spend a lot of time getting money from the state piece by piece in grants.
Right.
One of the things I like about this is and you can get out after 5 years. You don't like it, you're out. You can vote at town
Good to
hall
know.
to be out in a town meeting and be out in 5 years. So it's not a, shackle for the rest of your life. You get money on money. And the amount of time that this town hall spends trying to get grants that are one time and the administrative costs that go with that, they pay for a fair amount of administrative costs. I mean, they never do that on any grant that we've ever done.
Yeah.
They just let you, spend your time on it. So there's a lot of advantages.
Well, thank you for your explanation this evening, and I hope we do some outreach, public outreach as well at some point along
Yeah,
the way.
we've got to get the board, to have its questions answered,
Yeah.
because I think the board's questions are going to be reflective of the public's.
Yes.
But if you have any questions when I'm doing my research and work, let me know.
Great, thank you.
Pat?
Levine, 261 East Main Street. I would like to endorse what my friends have said. I would say colleagues, but I'm not on the same committees. I think it's a really excellent plan to start talking about it and educating about it, and I'm hopeful that we'll convince even the chair to come.
Good luck.
He doesn't change his mind easily, Pat.
No, listen, I'm a neighbor, I understand. But the other thing I wanted to mention, because you, Nadine, had mentioned the idea of hotspots. Two things in that regard. The library's Wi-Fi is available 24 hours, and there is a gazebo out there. People are there in the parking lot, in their cars, and in the gazebo lots of times. Secondly, the library does have, through a state-sponsored program, Wi-Fi hotspots that you can take with you if you're going on vacation and you want to have Wi-Fi. They're free to use. And we have 3 or 5 of them, I can't remember. You sign up and get them for a couple of weeks. So there's also that option.
Is that in the Library of Things?
I'm sure they're listed there. Yeah, yeah.
And again, given what you said, Bob and Nadine do not have to agree to vote yes.
That's right.
Seriously, I'm just looking to get it on the warrant.
Right.
Okay, we all have put things on the warrant over our lives that we may not agree with, and we vote accordingly. But the issue is to get it on the warrant so that town voters can decide what they want to do with it.
Yep.
Very good. Any other comment?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
To go into executive session?
Yes.
Well, I ain't
Not to
no-
return to open meeting?
Was that you made a motion?
Yeah.
I would second that. And
All those in favor?
And not come out, not return to
Yeah,
open session.
that's what I said.
Yeah, sorry.
Yep, that's okay.
So anxious
It was a joint meeting, a joint motion.
And we'll close the meeting. Good night, everyone.